It's me, MLB. Here is the next part 3 of the Mei Mei X Mal Listener. Enjoy. With confidence, she turned and headed on down the tunnel, with you and Wee Wee following behind her. You couldn't help but watch her hips swaying in your torchlight, and you gave a side glance at her brother, only to see him giving you a heavy disapproving look from the corner of his eye, and you cleared your throat with embarrassment at being caught watching her. He must have seen me looking at her. But she's an attractive and competent woman. I can't help it, you thought. Further down the tunnel you walked, seeing the occasional remnants of bones from those who had passed before, and your lips pulled into a tight line. I can't wait to get out of here, you thought the further you walked in. Ahead you could hear the rush of water, and you lifted your head and torch to see ahead. Water, you commented. You were pretty sure the other two already knew, but you felt the need to make mention of it anyway. Mei Mei stopped ahead of you, still with her battle axe across the back of her shoulders, and you stepped up beside her, seeing the cave widen out ahead of you both and water cascading down from an underground waterfall. Well, here's the canyon then, you mused. I got rope here if we need to drop down, you said, taking a step forwards and shining the torch around to have a look. The canyon was deep, and your torch didn't shine all the way to the bottom, but the water spray was also distorting your vision any further down, so you weren't sure just how deep it was. Might have to go in, you commented. Could be a body at the bottom. You shone the torch around the edges of the canyon to see if you could see any signs of slippage, as sometimes you could tell if there could be someone down there, since there was sometimes a side that had a smooth bit where the dirt had crumbled away under the weight of someone, but you couldn't see anything like that. You ready to come down with me? You asked Mei Mei. She looked at you. How do you suppose we both get down there? She asked. Oh, well, you said, pulling the rope from where you had hitched it to your belt at the back. I'm going to tie this rope to... You looked around, shining your torch with you as you looked and spotted an exposed root a little way back from the edge. To this root back here, you said, walking over to it. But as you got closer, you could see that someone had used this root to attach a rope to, but there was no sign of the rope now, but there was rope burns in one section of the root. Oh, you said. Yeah. What is it? Mei Mei asked, walking over to take a look. Someone must have tied a rope here too, and they've not tied it well enough, so it's come undone, you said, reaching out to run your fingers over the indent in the root, the inner parts of the root being a little greener and softer after being exposed. I'll bet there's someone down there, with a rope near them or tied around them. Mei Mei hummed in agreement. I know how to tie a rope well, so don't worry, you said to her, immediately getting to work. And will you go down first and then call for me? She asked, watching as you expertly tied the rope around the root and tugged on it to test it. No, you replied. I'll carry you down with me. Carry? She said with surprise evident in her voice. Her face was still obscured by her front braid, but you didn't need to see her expression to hear the surprise in her voice. I might not be able to fight curses, but I can carry people, you commented, putting your heavy-duty gloves on and pulling the rope behind you as you walked backwards to the edge of the canyon. We stay here, Mei Mei said as she turned and followed you. But... he tried to protest. No buts, she said. Be obedient, she added, and he immediately subdued and remained still. We will return, she said confidently to him. You walked to the edge and shone the torch over again to see where the footing was and check where you were going to step your feet on the way down, and was grateful when it looked like it wasn't too wet on the footholds. You ready? You asked Mei Mei, as you wrapped the rope around behind you and placed one gloved hand back behind you to hold the rope firmly, and then you stepped to the edge and leaned back. Sit side saddle across my lap, and put your arm around my neck, you instructed her. Older sister, I must object, Wee Wee said, as he heard your request. Hush, Wee Wee, she said as she took the battle axe off her shoulder and then stepped towards you and placed her hip against your lower abdomen and settled down as you leaned back further and took one step down to the canyon, her arms moving to around your neck as she placed the axe across her lap. You slowly descended, your torch now between your teeth as you kept your body parallel with the floor of the canyon, slowly walking your feet down the rock and dirt wall with Mei Mei on your lap. I must say, you're strong, she commented, and you looked at her. You really couldn't reply to her though, since you had the torch in between your teeth, but you were proud all the same. Seeing her be able to easily take on the curses that you felt so obstructed by had you feeling mildly embarrassed as a man, but this way you could show that you weren't completely useless. I'm eternally grateful for all the time I spent in the gym now, you thought, as you kept going down, occasionally looking over your shoulder to shine the torch down and see if you could spot the bottom below. Down you went, your right forearm starting to burn a little now since you were using it to hold both your and Mei Mei's weight, but thankfully you could see the floor just below, and as you got within a decent distance to it, Mei Mei announced that she would jump. You nodded and let her off, and then you jumped the last bit also, keen to shake out your arm. At the bottom you took your torch from your mouth and shook your right arm, moving it rapidly back and forth to rid yourself of the cramps. As you shone the torch around, you spotted something further to the right and you paused. Mei Mei must have spotted it too since she jerked her head in that direction and you joined her, both of you walking over to see what it was. The spray from the waterfall was still a little obstructive for vision and it also prevented you from being able to hear each other clearly, but oddly you and Mei Mei just seemed to understand each other and didn't really even need to speak words. As you walked over, you saw it was a person. You held your torch a little higher and could see a rope over the other side of them. You looked at Mei Mei and she looked at you, her eyes meeting yours from the side of her braid. I was correct then, you thought as you walked over. There was a darker puddle around this person and you already knew it was blood, presumably from the head, but you hadn't properly checked yet. It was while you were focused on the body that Mei Mei suddenly stepped to your right and you looked up just as a curse lunged out from the darkness towards her. She handled it without even looking at it really, and you had to stop for a second to look at her. Who even is this woman? You thought. She moves on instinct, can defeat these things in a millisecond, and is cute to boot. What a lucky day for me. All of this being thought while you stood next to a dead body. You rescue people were built different. You walked around the body and started your inspection. They were definitely dead, very cold, had been there for a while, and you sighed to yourself as you prepared them for the ascent. With smaller ropes you tied their arms and legs to make it easier to lift them up, and then indicated to Mei Mei what you were intending to do. You knew she was strong and capable, but also wanted to check that she was okay if you took the body up first and then came back down for her. I'll leave the torch with you, you said to her over the roar of the waterfall. She nodded. I'll shine it up so you can see where to go, she said. Then it was your turn to nod, and you passed the torch to her and hoisted the dead body weight up over one shoulder. Mei Mei watched it with wonder as you grabbed the rope in both hands and then started to pull yourself up the side of the canyon, hand over hand, feet walking up the rocks until you got to the top, and then you shifted your weight forwards and slowly rolled the dead body off your shoulder and onto the ground at the top of the canyon. Impressive, she thought, watching as you got the body properly up onto the landing and then started your descent to come back down and get her. You got to the bottom and waved her over, patting your lap to indicate to her to get on just as she had when you'd brought her down to the bottom, and so you were back at it, hand over hand, pulling you both back up the side of the canyon until you got to the top, and she got off and then reached a hand to you to help pull you up, which you were grateful for as your arms were starting to burn again. My guess is, you commented once you had moved away from the edge and were untying your trusty rope, is that this guy went to head down, and the rope came undone, so he plummeted to the bottom. His friends saw, and they were all too scared to do the same thing, but wanted to see if he was okay, so they tried to find another point at which to get down to the bottom. Sounds plausible, Mei Mei replied. Just then your radio crackled to life. One of your co-workers was asking if you could hear them. Yeah, copy, what's up? You said into the radio. We got 2 bodies, they said. Something isn't right here. I'm feeling really dizzy, and... The line started to crackle, and you looked at Mei Mei. A curse. You said, we need to move fast. And there ends part 3. Stay tuned for next week, part 4 coming then. I'll see you then.